the separation of timelines. It's visible, it's going on right in front of our eyes right now. It's never been more visible. So today we're talking about the two worlds split, and I'm going to share some in-depth information about it that I've never shared with you before. I'm going to share with you because the time is approaching right now for you to understand this more fully. One of the reasons that I want to share this information with you now is because I'm noticing a lot of arguments that are very unnecessary. We'll talk about those arguments. We'll talk about the 4 pieces of evidence that I can show you that shows you the two very distinct timelines, and it's going to allow you to see which one you're in the process of aligning to. And if you don't like your alignment, whoopee-doo, you can change your alignment right now. So that is a very promising thing. Sit through this, sit with me, let's talk about it, because this matters. This matters a whole lot. This is the timeline split, the two world split as it takes place. We're witnessing arguments, kind of like we looked at when the Mandela effect first started. Do you remember when the Mandela effect first started being noticed? We had people saying, no, it's this ending to the movie. I was there, I remember it. And then other people saying, no, it's this ending to the movie. I was there, I remember it. And there were people arguing. This is the ending to the song. This is how the advert went. It was Bernstein Bears, not Berenstein Bears, whatever. There were people having these silly arguments, and they were both right. Because what occurred was the collapsing of all of the timelines into one convergence point. We are living right now in the convergence point where all of those timelines collapsed into. But as those timelines collapsed, they made a mess. It was a mishmash of so many different realities, so that our timeline started to do something that a timeline cannot do long term. A timeline can only do this very, very short term, and that is to hold in itself all the collapsed potentialities, all of the collapsed potentials of all of those timelines that have converged into this one space. All of those arguments, as nonsensical as they were, because of that convergence, right now we're seeing a new set of arguments taking place. And I'm going to talk about those new set of arguments as we get ready for the two world split. So look at that. It came in with realities coming into the convergence point, lots of confusion. Same thing as the reality split apart, lots of confusion. We're at the convergence point. And if you and I could look at the timeline right now, and we could kind of nudge each other, looking at it from a very zoomed out perspective, we would go, oh my gosh, it's about to blow. Look at that thing. Because it's going wow, wow, wow. It's holding all of the potentials and all of the collapsed timelines into one space. This is the eye of the needle. We're being squashed and squeezed. And eventually, Ascension comes and spits us out into one of these two timelines. What it looks like right now is this one timeline, but it's got two very distinct and separate streams, two very distinct currents of energy. The one goes to 5D, the one goes to 4D. But as this occurs, the streams become more and more distinct, to the point that what we have right now is the beginning of a membrane forming around these two realities. That membrane is going to get bigger and bigger. Eventually, it's going to become like a glass barrier. You can see each other. You can even speak to each other. And it's metaphoric. I'm not saying there's going to be literally a glass barrier between you and your loved ones, for example. However, it's going to feel like, you just don't get me, do you? I just don't understand what you're saying. It's going to feel like, no comprende. You know, you're in two different worlds, and even when you speak the same language, you just don't get each other, because that membrane is going to become more and more thick and solid. This is part of the splitting apart of the two timelines. But what I've never shared with you guys before, and I want to do this update about the timeline split because it's so important for you to see the bigger picture of what's going on. This veering off point, I'm going to call this the lower reality, but lower doesn't mean worse and bad, and this is where the wrong people go. That is not what lower reality means. It's just a limitation of the English language. Higher reality, lower reality. Higher is 5D and beyond. Lower is under 5D, so that means it's 4D and maybe even 3D. Why am I saying maybe even? Am I not sure? Have I forgotten? Don't I know what's going on? Well, this is what I haven't shared with you before. And it becomes very relevant when I share these 4 pieces of evidence with you for the timeline split, because a big part of today's video comes from this ongoing debate that I'm noticing people have. I was talking recently about the incoming solar flares. We've had a couple of X-class solar flares and they've set off aurora borealis around the world. Guys, I'm in Africa. We don't know northern lights other than reading the words northern and lights. We don't. It's not even in our frame of reference. And yet here, out of my windows, just over there, the aurora borealis was visible. Although, you guys, I know you'll correct me in the comment section. Apparently, in the southern hemisphere where I am, the aurora borealis has got a different name. It's aurora something else. So aurora borealis is northern hemisphere, and we had the southern hemisphere version of that. But when did that ever happen? Anyway, there's going to be a lot more of these visible shifts taking place. And when that happens, you're going to get people from the old reality or the lower level reality. And they're going to go, no, that's not it. Nope, that's not anything to do with ascension. That's not anything to do with raising of frequency. That's got to do with an interference frequency. Guys, you know I'm on social media, so I've got to watch how I phrase things. But, you know, there's a stringed instrument, and it's called a harp. And some people think there's electromagnetic interference regarding that stringed instrument. So some people are going, no, it's that stringed instrument. That's what's causing everything. And now they're arguing, just like the people were arguing with the Mandela effect stuff. Both are right. It's just which way are you facing, right? We have come into the convergence point. And now we're beginning this process. And everyone's going to ask me the same question. How long, Carrie? A week, a day, a month? Give me a timeline. No ways. No ways will I give you a timeline. It is what it is, and we are where we are. The timeline could be 1 day, it could be 1 month, it could be 20 years. It just is. But comparatively, this has been going on for millions of years. Comparatively, 20 years, guys, that's like tomorrow. As good as tomorrow. It is in our lifetime. For most of us, it is in our lifetime. The 2-world split that we're seeing, one path, the lower level reality, has actually got 2 options, 2 points. Only one will become the eventuality. Only one will become the actuality. This is a different planet. Remember, 5D happens here on planet Earth. Earth will only host 5D and even higher than 5D, but 5D is going to be the lowest frequency that life can be. In other words, anything under 5D won't be able to sustain life here. It can't be hosted here on planet Earth. This will become, or reverted back to, I should rather say, the pristine Eden that Earth originally was. Earth was originally the jewel of the cosmos. Our sun is a very important stargate. I won't bore you and put up the details again. You can watch the video where I spoke about this. I'll link it in the video description box below. But our sun is a major, major hub containing the codes for various galaxies, universes, other planets. It's all contained within that stargate that is our sun. This planet used to be a 5D planet before the fall. The fall, which really started in Lemuria, carried on in Atlantis, took many, many years to occur. The fall is the fall in consciousness. We're now in the process of restoration. But there are people who are going to say, I'm not ready yet. And there's 2 groups of people saying, I'm not ready yet. The controllers of the false matrix are very not ready to give up their baby, to give up their dream, which is the false matrix, which is a false reality set about, this is important, to mimic, to look like the original creation template. So we've got the organic universe, which is God's original creation, and then we've got the false matrix, which is tampered with, a reality that's manipulated. The false matrix is there for one reason, and that is to sustain the archons. This is their fuel source. They cannot create, but they can engineer. And we are the creative livestock so to speak, that's been creating reality on their behalf, and in so doing, inflicted a lot of misery upon ourselves. The false matrix, or at least the controllers of the false matrix, they're not ready to give up. And there are also human beings going, but I'm not done learning. So these are the two groups of people who we're looking at that are moving into the lower level realities. Those who are busy playing in 5D, I call these guys, very lovingly, I call these guys the overachievers. Overachievers, why? Because holy smoke, all we ever really wanted was a fair chance at ascension. What we set out for and what we're busy doing are two different things. We set out to have a pathway open, that those who wanted to ascend could. But as we achieved that, our plans got more and more ambitious, and we said, well, maybe we could have more people ascend. So we did. Then we said, well, maybe we could have even more people ascend, and so we did. And then we said, well, maybe we could have even more. And so there's a whole lot of people here moving into the 5D path that were never destined to be originally. This was so out of reach until a group of pioneers, I call them the spiritual warriors, got hold of this path and created an invitation, which is an energetic ripple. It's what you and I are doing energetically. We're acting as examples of frequency, examples of consciousness, so that these people here who are moving towards a lower frequency outcome, so that they have an option. That's all. Just so that they have a fair choice. Now, the chance of a false matrix being re-established here is very low. But I need to share this with you and explain it to you so that you can understand the mimicry system. Because when you understand the mimicry system, then you're going to understand why there's these arguments breaking out at the moment. That's where I'm going to give you the 4 pieces of evidence for the 2-world split. As much as I don't see that taking place, there is a dissolving of that reality, a dissolving of the possibility and potentiality of a new false matrix. You see, what these overachievers have gone and done is said, hold on. Our ripple is so big that it's now not just affecting our path, it's spilling over because we're still in the convergence point. And because we're still in the convergence point, that overspill goes into the lower level timeline and begins to dissolve the lowest frequency in that possibility. In other words, it begins to dissolve the potential of any other false matrix being established. The ripple of this is huge, and the ripple of this is that all other false matrices in existence, and there are many, will collapse at our ascension point. That's why there's a lot of galactic interest in our ascension right now, and why we have the amount of support that we do. The higher level of the lower level reality. So we've got the false matrix being one option, and then there is another 4D reality. Please remember that 4D can look very similar to 3D. One of the questions I was amazed that people asked me was, and it just sort of shows how very linear and literal our thinking is as 3D humans. It's very conditioned thinking. But nonetheless, when I spoke about the 2-world split before, a lot of people said, oh, so everybody's just like born on the same day on a new planet, and everybody's like just babies all at once. Who's gonna be their parents? You guys, we get inserted into a timeline with an established memory of having been born on that timeline. For all you know, you were inserted on the timeline today, and now you have a memory of what happened yesterday and last week and last month and 10 years ago and 20 years ago, etc. That could just be a stage memory, so to speak. The only now that there really is this now. This is the only place that you're real. And that's how we get inserted into timelines. Time is very fluid and very, very malleable. The people who at the ascension point veer off into the lower frequency options, they're going to get inserted into an existing world there. Either the false matrix world or into a 4D world. And as much as this is in the process of collapsing, it's also very worthwhile noticing that this is very much being created right now. This is in the throes of forming itself. You see, there was a time in our past where reality was so concrete and so absolute because why? We didn't have a lot of say. We didn't have a lot of bandwidth to play in, so we didn't have a lot of creative power. Now we have a lot of creative power, which means we can totally restructure things. And we have a lot of leeway to play with. So here in the lower level reality, there's a lot of leeway and it's being played out. And as much as that lower level is, or rather the lowest possibility of the lower level realities, as much as that is in the process of being collapsed, the debris of its collapse becomes visible now. Listen to that, it's important. The debris of this collapse of the lowest level of reality, in other words, another false matrix, that's kind of creating a lot of dust. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So the higher of those two options in the lower level realities, the higher is a 4D world, which is basically an opportunity to evolve without malevolent interference and manipulation. So imagine what that would be like, just being able to grow, being able to evolve without the restrictions of, for example, corrupt politicians and a corrupt monetary system. Life would look very different. This still takes many lifetimes. It's not an overnight event, but to those people who have veered off or chosen to veer off, it's a very valid choice. They don't need to be saved. These are infinite beings. And an infinite being is kind of like Oprah Winfrey, there's 10 years for you and 10 years for you and 100 years for you and 1,000 years for you and more for you and more for you and more for you and more for you. Because there's as much as you want. When you're infinite, who's counting? You can have as many tries at this thing as you like. So very much like when you're playing a game, like as in a video game. You just want to hone your skill. You just want to get really good. Sometimes it's really nice to have your avatar die and respawn so that you can replay and get better and get better and get better, and eventually, bam, you've got it. That's pretty much what these guys are doing. When you were born to this world, you didn't know the name that you had before this life. You don't remember the name of the street you grew up on, or the country, or the language even that was your native language. You don't remember who your parents were, your siblings were. You don't remember the story of your past life. And it's exactly the same for the people who populate the new reality that is going to be the lower level reality. So they will essentially, at the ascension point, they will leave this embodiment. They will leave this planet. They get reborn or inserted into a lower level reality, but that lower level reality is still a big step up from where we've been in the false matrix. 5D. The 5D reality that will be here on planet Earth will be so indicative of the Eden that we once were. The Eden that we once were was so spectacular. This was a 5D planet and it's set to become that again. We will reabsorb all of the pollution and the plastics and transmute it into pure light. That's what Ascension is. There will be no remnants of toxicity and pollution. They will be not even there. So in other words, it'll be memory, but it will be like a movie. In other words, not something that you have a visceral reaction to. It will be like, yeah, that was weird. I remember that. So you'll remember once you've shifted into 5D at the ascension point, you'll still remember the life before this, the name before this. You'll still carry the same name over. You'll still carry the same look over. But after ascension, and for the next couple of years after ascension, because by the way, that's going to bring back the restoration of our longevity, our longer lifespans. We're meant to live at least 1,000, maybe even 2,000 years. So post ascension, we've got much, much longer lives. So we will look back on this pre-ascension self and go, I look very similar, I think. I feel like I look really similar, but you'll be a youthful version of you. You will be the original blueprint of what you were meant to look like. You guys make me laugh so much. One of your comments, I put up something on Ascension recently, and I said the body is restored at Ascension and anything artificial is transmuted back into the organic blueprints. And somebody said, yeah, but what about hair extensions? You guys, come on. Anything that is inorganic is not taken over into the 5D world. Bless you for your questions. But when I say 5D is an organic world, it means it's an organic world. It doesn't mean your hair extensions go with you, or your false teeth for that matter, but it does mean that the body gets restructured. The body gets realigned. The body gets healed. There's so many people out there that go, I'm too fat to ascend. I'm too diseased to ascend. I'm too arthritic to ascend. Then you don't understand. You don't understand the nature of ascension. It is a complete restructuring of the body. So that's the 5D world. We've got the timeline split. Oh, and I know another question. So many people asked, what happens to my animals and my children? You guys, animals and children are the quickest among us to shift off into 5D. It's so easy for them to ascend. It's the adults that have the much harder version because we've had much longer playing out the ego and much more attachment to the opinions and the stories of the ego. Your pets don't have stories that they cling on to. Your children tend not to have stories. The younger they are, the easier it is. The children will go with the adult, because here's another question. Children will go with the adult who is normally of the highest frequency, but for each child, that is a story that they've already wrapped up. They've already made that choice. Before they even incarnated, before they chose you as their parents, they would have known mom's going this way, dad's going this way, for example, because some of you guys come from separate homes, right? So this was a question a lot of people asked, what if we're divorced and and one ascends and one doesn't? What happens to my children? Children will tend to go with the highest frequency parent, but it's tending, okay? I'm just saying they tend to. I'm not saying this is absolute. Your pets, very easy for them to go into 5D, but if you're going into 4D and they've got a contract to stay with you, because most often there are these beautiful soul agreements to stay with a loved one. And there are people, by the way, who are very ready for 5D, but who are going to take that lower level split because they want to go in and support. There's nothing wrong with that role either. Something so important to start seeing now is the evidence of the split. So here are the 4 pieces of evidence that I can give you. Number 1, I've already given it to you. In fact, that is the aurora borealis. And what that's representative of is Earth's weakening magnetic field. As that magnetic field weakens, we have more solar storms. We have more cosmic light coming into the planet. And as that cosmic light comes into the planet, it begins to melt the density of the false matrix. But guess what happened? Very recently, we had a number of those X-class flares. We had a number of the aurora borealis, and we had people arguing and saying, no, it's that stringed instrument. It's got nothing to do with anything miraculous. You guys always seeing the best in things. I want you to really risk seeing the best in things. I want you to risk asking the question, how good can this get? It's a question that we ask each other every Friday in the Plasma Light Tribe. How good can this get? Like, genuine curiosity. I genuinely want to know, how good can your life get? How much happiness can you handle? How much love can you tolerate? How many miracles can you witness? How much beauty can you withstand? These are very, very, very important questions because they align you to that higher reality. And this is what you want to start doing right now. So when you hear people over here saying, no, it's interference, what you're hearing are people who simply cannot see the 5D world that's taking place. They've become cynical. They've become jaded. And it's not to say that there wasn't intervention and interference. Rather, it's to say there is a mimicry system, you guys. The creators of the engineers, because they can't create, the engineers of the false matrix, all that they can do is copy the existing blueprint of how reality is going to look. So in one of these two worlds, the organic world, you're going to see aurora borealis. In the other world, you're going to see electromagnetic interference. In one, here's a second evidence, you're going to see 5D. And in the other, you're going to see the counter opposite to that 5D energy, which is known as 5, with the letter G next to it. And this is where more interference. But look at the focal point. In this focal point, the frequency determines who I am. So in other words, in the lower level reality, the frequency that is in my environment determines who I am. So my environment creates me. My environment has power over me. I don't have power over it. That's what this is saying. Whereas in the higher level reality, I am 5D. I am the light. I am the creator of my world. So my 5D energy cannot be thwarted when I'm sitting in it. That's why it's so important for you to actually engage with your light now and to really step out of your comfort zone to get to know the magnificence that you are. Here's a third evidence, and that is artificial reality. Artificial reality, VR, there's this metaverse, and what it's going to become is an augmented reality where you can live forever. That's what it's going to become. You're going to merge people here in these realities. The option will be there for you to merge with artificial intelligence. And everybody listening is going to go, I wouldn't do that. Nah, not me. I wouldn't do that. There's a lot of people that said I wouldn't do a lot of things that when it came time to do it, they did. Because they were pressured into it. Everybody else was doing it. Mainstream media told them to do it. So what we're going to see is this potential. It's a lower level potential, and it sits over here, and it's set up as part of the mimicry system because why? The organic ascension template hosts infinity. As you step into that 5D body, you get access to the infinite records, the infinite self. So I recently did this amazing 5-week course called Forever Starts Now. And in it, that's exactly what we did. We connected to the infinite self. The infinite self holds all of your potential. And it's not something you connect to once. It's not like a one and done kind of thing. It's an ongoing, evolving connection. This is what's important right now. Infinity, connecting to the infinite self, the multidimensional self. Because this is the part of you that is undertaking ascension. This is the part of you that is not the ego. This lower level reality is way too attached to the ego. And it can't let that attachment go. Ascension symptoms. I love this one. You guys. People ask me every day about ascension symptoms. And there's something so glaringly obvious that ascension symptoms are exactly the same symptoms for EMF poisoning. You know what EMF poisoning is? It's what you get from being around all of this electromagnetic frequency. It's the residue and the bombardment of being around 5G towers and cell phones. And look at me here as I talk to you. There's a cell phone over there. There's a computer in front of me. We've got a modem on, routers. You know, we're continually, all of us, being bombarded. Even when we go to the store, everybody's cell phones is in their pockets. We're being bombarded by frequency. That's EMF radiation. And some people are very susceptible and get very sick because of it. Ascension is not an illness. So when people tell me about their ascension symptoms and they say, I am sick with ascension symptoms and I'm bedridden with ascension symptoms, that's not an ascension symptom, you guys. An ascension symptom is fleeting. It's transitory. It's in and out. And this is so important. An ascension symptom comes in. You can feel very challenged. You can feel very out of it. You can feel very off kilter. You can feel very off key. But then you're left higher. You're left, once all of that is dissolved, you're left in a higher state of being. But there are people telling me my ascension symptoms have lasted me for the last 10 years, 5 years, 8 years. What? That is not an ascension symptom at all. An ascension symptom comes in and goes. But when it's discharged, there's a higher version of you that can show itself now. So can you see how we have two realities that look really similar? So somebody here in this reality preparing for 5D can say, oh, I've got a headache and I've got vertigo and I'm dizzy and I've got all these ascension symptoms. And this person over here is going to say, I've got exactly the same symptoms. But it's caused by two different things. This does not find alleviation and relief. This one does. So now look at your world. Look at the four evidences of these two realities. And just notice which one you're the most aligned to. This is not about wrong and right. This is about correction And if you can say to me, oh, Kerry, yes, I am totally here. I am aligning to 5D every step of the way, then align more. So don't just let this be a call for you to go, oh, phew, okay, I'm facing the right direction. I'm facing the right direction, but now how do I go in there deeper, further? How do I take that quantum leap? How do I fly where I was once walking? Because, of course, these are the type of questions that an overachiever is going to ask. Spiritual warriors, we're creating miracles together. I hope that listening to today's conversation has given you some light bulb moments. I hope that it's given you a bolstering, because you really deserve that. You deserve all the support. You deserve all the love. But can you hold it? Can you receive it? Can you allow it? And if the answer is no, then just be willing to. Just say to yourself, ooh, I don't think I can receive, but I'm willing. I'm willing. I don't think I can allow, but I'm willing. Look at how you can shift. And then, of course, the simplest question, how good can this get? And you're going to feel something happens. What is that? What is that? What is that feeling? It's called excitement. And when you have excitement for absolutely no bloody reason whatsoever, it's just there, then you've got to know something. You're doing something right. See, in the old reality, we always needed a reason to validate excitement. You can't just be excited because that's silly. Then we called it nervousness. Do you know that? We actually said, oh, I'm anxious. Excitement is like if there was a coin and there was a flip side of the coin of anxiety, it would be called excitement. Right now, you are learning that you're an alchemist. The world is presenting to you a memory that says, remember, you're an alchemist. You're not here to fight against things. You're here to transform the already existing into a higher expression. We've already come so far you can't understand. We've already done so much. It's incomprehensible. From the original plan, we just want a pathway. We just want the option for 5D for those who are capable to, let's just take most of the planet. Let's just make this a planet-wide event. And then, of course, those guys that said, no, actually, we still want to play. We still want to master the game because we're having so much fun. It's just like playing a video game. Those guys, they're the greats. They are one day going to be our greatest teachers because they want to learn every single nuance of the game. We just want to get through it. Most of us. We're like, okay, I know the basics of this game. It's time for Ascension now, right? It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just different choices. Yeah, from my heart, all the way into yours. Be loved, be held, be nurtured, be reminded that you're so much more than you think you are. If you would like to come into my deeper level of online teachings, the Plasma Light Tribe is the place to come. The door's open, and I look forward to seeing you there. Lots of love, everyone.